Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome to the Blues Hub Weekly Show. I'm your host, Brooke Grimsley, alongside former Blues forward and Stanley Cup champion Jamal Mayers. Jamal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's Sunday. The Blues are rolling, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And for all the people who are starting to come in, make sure you like and subscribe this YouTube channel. Follow us on social media for updates. We will be here daily to provide local teams like the Blues. All right, Jamal, let's go ahead and kick it off because what a day it was for. What a week it's been. I mean, game three, incredible too. We'll touch on that. But the Blues are a problem, and that's a good thing. This series between the Blues and Jets is now tied 2-2 after back-to-back wins at home. Game three, as I mentioned, and game four this afternoon. They were just dominant in both games. And today, 5-1, the final score in that one. What were your big takeaways from today's game?
Wow, a lot to take away from these couple games. Obviously, it's never good when you are down 2-0, but as well as the Blues had played down the stretch in finding a way to get it done on their winning streak, you knew that coming home was going to be a good thing for this team, and it certainly was. And it started in game three, and they found a way to get that win. But today, there was a lot of questions. Was it luck? Is there a way that they're going to be able to replicate the success they had in game three, running away with that victory? And you weren't quite sure because Winnipeg scored the first goal, and you look at the final score and you wonder, did that really just happen? But the Blues found a way to come back and actually absolutely dominate the Winnipeg Jets in every facet of the game and kind of put a lot of question marks into what Hellebuyck is feeling. And I think the crowd had a lot to do with it as well. But a lot of question marks, I think, right now for this Jets team in regard to their goaltender and how they're going to respond at home.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Hellebuyck too, but I wanted to talk about the difference between the first period in game four today versus game three. Game three, it's like they were shot out of a cannon when they were back here at home. But then you look at game four today, wasn't exactly the best start for the Blues, but then they were able to answer there with just under 30 seconds left. Jake Neighbors was able to tie it up, his first NHL playoff goal for him. So congratulations for that. And then you go to the second period, and that was all Blues. I mean, 3 goals in just the second period. What changed between the first period and the second period for you today?
Well, I think the Blues kind of settled in. I thought that you got a good push from the Jets, and the Blues did a nice job of not only withstanding that, even getting scored on first, but to get a goal in the final minute when, you could argue that the Jets had kind of controlled things in the first period. To get that goal, that Jake Neighbors goal was massive because now instead of going into the room down a goal, down 1-0, you go in tied with some real momentum heading into that second period. And I think in the second period, the Blues, I think in the third game and the fourth game, have done a tremendous job in doing a couple of things. And not to get too technical, but the Jets are one of the few teams that defensively like to do what's called a swarm. So they literally will try to get a stop along the boards, usually typically below the hash marks, and they'll send both D into the corner or into the hash marks with another forward, and they'll have a different forward net front. And really what they're trying to do is outnumber you. And the only way to break it is exactly what the Blues have done extremely well in game 3 and 4, and that is have a long release, meaning release the puck from the one corner, rim it all the way around to the other side where you allow your weak side D to go get that puck as low or as high as he needs to go. And that then makes them completely have to reset. I think it was a tremendous job by Monty in that adjustment. Not only that, they've also made an adjustment in game 3 and 4 in the neutral zone, really doing a good job of forcing the Jets to not allow them to carry the puck in the offensive zone. They had to be comfortable with giving up possession of the puck and getting on the forecheck, which isn't something that first line in particular is doesn't really like to do. So I think those two key adjustments were really brilliant moves by Monty to see how they would respond. And I can tell you this, the Jets never could recover defensively, and you saw them having to defend a heck of a lot of time in the defensive zone. I think that was a brilliant move by Monty to switch things up in the offensive zone.
Yeah, kind of staying on that too, because that's the big question that a lot of people have, right? Is like you were down 2-0 in this series, and the Blues just really in such a hurry have been able to find their game. It feels like they've gotten back to kind of the bread and butter that we saw after that Four Nations break of what was really working for them. You mentioned forechecking, the defensemen really jumping in on the rush, creating that traffic in front of the net. Just gritty overall is what we're seeing from this group. But how else have they been able to get back to that style of play? Because it's not just easy to do that, especially against the President Trophy winners.
Well, it starts in goal. And I think that, we probably haven't really touched on as good as Binner has been, but, the Jets are a good team, so they're going to push back. But I think that not only was Binner, stood his ground and made the timely saves, because that's what winning goaltenders do, he's found a way to give his team confidence. And I think that confidence, you're seeing it from the back end all the way out into the forward. So I think it starts with Binner, and I think that he's outplaying Hellebuyck to this point. And I think that gives the team confidence to play on their toes and know that if they do turn the puck over, if they do make a mistake, that he's there to back them up. I will also point out that I thought the Blues did a tremendous job, particularly in Game 4 today, where they protected the front of the net. And I think that there was a real concerted effort to keep things to the outside, to not allow their better players to get to the interior. And I think when you're doing that, you're giving Binner the looks that he's able to save. So I can guarantee you that Binner's saying, hey, you're going to give me those shots from outside the dots and from far away and all those things with no traffic and no second chance opportunities. He'd take those all day long. And I think the Blues did a tremendous job in that regard defensively in front of them.
For all the people who are coming in, make sure that you weigh in on the chat. And if you have any questions for Jamal, be sure to get those in, and we'll get those in to Jamal throughout the show. But you mentioned there, Jordan Binnington has been a difference maker once again during the playoffs, standing on his head in this series. And we've seen that especially here in Game 3 and Game 4. And on the other side, Connor Hellebuyck has become the story of this series, and not in a good way. He gave up 5 goals on 18 shots in Game 4 today, 6 goals on 25 shots in Game 3, and now he's given up 15 goals on 81 shots in the series for an .817 save percentage. How have the Blues cracked Hellebuyck? And he's a really good goaltender, obviously. I mean, he's an odds favorite right now to win his 3rd Vezina trophy. How have they been able to crack him?
Well, I think a couple things. I think that they're getting to the inside. They're really making him have to work for that second save. And I think that they're doing a great job of just, not just throwing pucks to the net. They're getting to the inside and they're making it uncomfortable, whether it's drive-by screens or even just standing in front of him, forcing him to have to look around and have to find those point shots. And the D are doing a great job of getting those shots through. They're not getting them blocked. You think about inversely, I think that the Blues are blocking a lot of shots, especially the forwards, and not allowing their D to get those pucks through. So a tremendous job by the Blues defenseman getting those pucks through. Quick movement to make him have to, make that second and third save, and making him have to look around people, look around traffic to try to find those pucks. And I think that the crowd certainly helps too when they're chanting his name. I think that's getting under his skin as well.
Yeah, I didn't know what you thought of that. I mean, the crowd, and we're going to touch on that too here. I mean, the crowd has been amazing here at Enterprise Center at home, like they have all season, but they have really stepped it up a notch during the playoffs. And when you hear those chants for Connor as a player, of course, you guys hear that on the ice and you try to block it out, but it does get in your head maybe a little bit.
Well, I'm not sure. Goalies are wired a little bit differently. I think he's probably able to tune it out, but I would be getting a chuckle as an opposing player on the bench. I'd love it. So, you love when the fans are into it, and they're certainly knowledgeable to know how to get under his skin. And it just shows you that the Blues fans certainly know what they're watching, and they know how to get under an opponent's skin. And even if they're saying, or maybe he says it's not really bothering him, I think the score would indicate otherwise.
And we have some questions coming in specifically about Hellebuyck. A6583 Rob says, Jamal, does the pulling of Hellebuyck in both games hurt his confidence? And is he on a leash for Game 5? And then Sandwich Man says, does Hellebuyck start for Game 5? I know that that's been a topic of discussion of if we'll see him start for Game 5. It seems like the Jets are saying, though, that they have 100% confidence and they're sticking with him. What do you think happens for the Jets? Do they stay with Hellebuyck? I mean, being pulled in back-to-back games, I think that does send a pretty strong message to him.
Yeah, I would be shocked if he doesn't start Game 5. I mean, he's arguably their best player, and I think that the reality is he needs to be better. I think he knows he needs to be better. but I think it would be I'd be shocked if they didn't start him. I think that he's a huge presence personality wise in that locker room as well. And I don't know if that's the message they certainly want to be sending. I think in some respects, you're also letting the team off the hook if you don't start him. And what I mean by that, Brooke, is that what you're perhaps saying, the team could be saying, well, you know what, Helly hasn't been himself. We're not playing that bad. Instead, I think if you start him, you're basically saying we've got to be better. It has nothing to do with him. Yeah, he needs to be better too. But I think if you don't start him, you're letting the team off the hook because they haven't played up to the standard they have. And I think as a coach, I think you don't want to give them an out. You want to make sure that they stay and want to play better. So I think the key would be, I think he starts. I think that what he means to this group, the fact that he's not only a Vezina Trophy winner this year, he is getting serious heart consideration. Now, it should be noted that the regular season is all that matters for these types of awards. But I can assure you, it's certainly going to influence some of the voters. How could it not? But I would think that he'll end up starting in Game 5, and I think even the chatter of him not starting in Game 5 would do some damage to his confidence as well.
Just some more questions coming in here too. That is in regards to today's game. Knight Rider 027 says, assuming Larry is back in Game 5, how big of a boost does that give the Jets? His absence today. I saw some commentators mentioning that was obviously a huge reason maybe why the Jets struggled. The Blues doing this without Dylan Holloway. That was my first thought when I saw that. But if he is back, how big of a boost does that give the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, he's their top line winger, so obviously has a lot of chemistry with his line mates, and I think that Scheifele and Connor will certainly want him back. I think that he adds a lot to what they do, not only 5-on-5, but on the power play as well. But it's not, every team has guys that are out, so would it be a huge addition? I was almost surprised that he didn't play, but I would think he'd be back in for Game 5. I saw him skating a little bit, so he looked like he was getting close, and he's been out for a while though. So when you've been out for 2.5 months, it's not easy to jump back in, but top players are able to do it, but I expect that he'll end up playing in Game 5.
SBS says, any news on Tucker? He was just starting to feel it, now maybe hurt. Of course, this is something that just happened. We saw at the end of the game where Tucker was struggling, and it didn't seem like Monty was indicating what the timetable would be. Of course, it just happened. So there's so much in that process, and you can speak to this as a player, Jamal, of all the things that they have to do to check for these players before they can release any information, right?
Yeah, and it becomes even more difficult as much as the betting world wants complete open book in that regard. I think that you have to protect the player first. You have to protect your own situation. I think that he's a tough kid. If he's able to play, he'll be in there. He's played extremely well. He just, he scored a fantastic goal to go up 2-1. It was a massive goal at the moment and ended up drawing a penalty that later turned into a goal as well. So he played extremely well. And, I got to be honest, with the game in hand, and I took my son to the game. I didn't get to see that part of it. We left with about 5 minutes left. I know what happened at the end of the game, so I have to be honest, I wasn't able to see what happened to him, but I think you're right. They'll wait till the morning. There's no real rush to give you an update because they don't play for a few days. So I'm sure they're hoping and holding out hope that with a few days off, he'll feel better to play. I believe it's on Thursday.
And as you mentioned, you were able to be there at the game today, and just the atmosphere has been incredible. I haven't had the ability to be able to go to the games, but still, just everything that I've seen, watching it on TV, all the social media posts, they've had great people coming out too, where you had Tony La Russa out there for Game 3. You had Pat Maroon out there today. I saw that Wills Contreras is also out there at Game 3, and it just seems like the energy is incredible, and you were out there today, so you can speak to it. Home ice has definitely been a huge advantage, and the fans have played a huge part in this. I mean, 14 straight wins at home now for the Blues at Enterprise Center.
Yeah, they certainly have. The energy there, you could feel it. It's palpable, and the fans are certainly a part of it, and I think the players feed off of it as well. So just a tremendous environment, and it's amazing how loud the building can get. So I know the players love it, and the players feed off of it, and it certainly fueled them to another victory to be able to tie up the series against the President's Trophy team.
And you get to experience that with your son, which is a special thing, as you were mentioning earlier, too, that you were able to go out there with them. I mean, for your kid to be able to see that and experience that, it's creating another Blues fan, right? And just the energy of it. I'm sure that's something like, what did he say afterwards? Like, Dad, that was so cool.
Absolutely. And the nice thing is we sit beside each other. Like, you kind of like talking to him about certain plays and about the game, and he loves the game. So, just, kind of talk, not over talking. So he just doesn't want to sit next to me, but yeah, it's just fun to enjoy it, soak it all up, and just, pick little things there and there that he can point out and things that he certainly noticed. It's definitely fun to sit there and watch it with him and talk about the game and things that have happened and why they happen. And then, as he gets older, I think that we're able to have a little bit more of a tactical approach to it and really see the finer points of what makes, the great players great and what they do that makes it special. And picking out that nuance while we're watching together is a lot of fun for me.
Does he have a favorite player? Are you okay with revealing that? Does he have a player that he really likes on the Blues?
He likes Thomas. I think he likes Kyrou. Kyrou, he thought didn't really bring it today. That I said they didn't really need him, but he played. I thought he played well in game three. I think he kind of really wasn't himself today, if I'm being honest. But if you win as big as they did and they didn't need him, that's a good thing. I think he also, of course, likes Thomas. It's his ability to make plays and create and hold on to pucks, and his vision and his passing ability is something he really likes watching.
All right, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys had some fun out there today. Getting back to some topics with the Blues. Now, the Blues PK is really getting the job done here, and especially in today's game. The Blues PK wasn't exactly great during the regular season. I think they were ranked 28th towards the end of the regular season, but in this series, they have really done well. What have they been able to do there to really make this Blues PK better during the playoffs, as opposed to maybe some of the stuff we saw in the regular season?
Well, what I've really liked about their PK, a couple of things. They've been doing a great job on the face-offs and getting the 200-foot clears to start things. And I think the other thing that they've done well is the forwards have really done a good job of managing their depth, meaning not getting too close to the blue line. And what that does is it doesn't allow you to be exposed for seam plays. And when Jordan Binnington doesn't have to go from looking all the way to his right to all the way to his left and taking one-timers through the seams, he's going to make those saves coming off the flank. He's going to make those little tip saves in front of him. And then they've done a really good job of really protecting the slot. And they're kind of allowing them to have the outside if they want to run a low play. The back door, they almost had one time, but I think Binner did a good job of sliding over and making himself big. I think the shot ended up being deflected by Perfetti. And I think that if things are up top, let's be honest, as good as the power play is for the Jets, they don't really have a guy up there like the Blues do in Parayko who can bomb it. So you're really giving them that shot up top, and your D are expected to block those wristers and protecting seams, and you're kind of dictating what you're giving them. And I think that strategically it's been working out well for the Blues on the PK.
And sticking with special teams, Jimmy Snuggerud being promoted to that first power play unit, it seems like he's making progress in every single game and getting more responsibility too.
Yeah, he's just a smart player. And I think that his ability to make plays, his ability to hold on to pucks really has been impressive. I think for a young player to be thrown into this environment, I know he played a handful of games, but the playoffs is another level of compete. It's another level of how hard it is to play. And I think that he's not only been noticeable, he's been very effective. And I think that he's just going to get better as the playoffs go along. And it's a compliment to him that Monty has confidence in him and elevating him to that top unit. At first in the regular season, when he first came in, I thought they're just going to see if he can do it. And I think that he has earned these opportunities to be elevated for how well he's played.
We've seen with the Jets too. I mean, obviously just scoring one goal today, but secondary scoring seems to be an issue for them in these past two games. But for the Blues, I mean, in game three, you had Pavel Buchnevich, who is just incredible. And you talked about earlier the week before that game that he needed to step up that top line. Your top players have to play like top players. And Booch definitely rose to the occasion. And you even mentioned, with your son there, maybe not the most exciting game for Kyrou, but you didn't really have to worry about it because you had so much secondary scoring. Is that a huge advantage for the Blues if they're able to continue that, hopefully? But it's been an advantage for them during the success that we've seen towards the end of the regular season, where they have a lot of guys who could score that secondary scoring, where you're not just relying on the top guys like we're seeing with the Jets right now.
You're absolutely right. And you think about the Jets and like where has the production been from the Nemesnikov line with Perfetti and who else is on that line? They've got Perfetti and Niederreiter. That line has basically been outplayed by Schenline. And I think that, look at today and Jake Neighbors had a fantastic game, made some great plays, had a goal and 2 assists. And you're right, the depth has come to the forefront. And I would have argued all season long that the Jets had one of the best third lines in the National Hockey League with Lowry centering that line, and I haven't even really noticed him. And so that's another compliment to the 4-line rotation that Monty's able to put out there, the trust that he has in all 4 lines, and they are the depth forward wise, especially, and even on the back end, has certainly outplayed the Jets. And as I mentioned before, to you, Brooke, you almost look at it before the series and you're like, if you're on the third line, you're like, I got to outplay the other team's third line. Fourth line guys, you got to outplay the other team. First line's got to outplay. And if that happens, you usually win the series. So I would say full check marks and A+ grades for the depth of the Blues, particularly in games 3 and 4.
And we talked about that loss with Holloway and how huge that is. And you said this about Monty, and not every coach has this, and that's in any sport, right? Where you can have that pulse of the players. And Monty seems to have the pulse of this team, what works and what doesn't work. I thought this move was interesting right before because we saw that Matthew Joseph was getting some reps again on the third line in practice leading up to the game today. And then right before the game, we saw that he stuck with Texier, who he had in game 3 the other day. Was that him kind of playing some mind games a little bit and knowing what will work for them again?
Yeah, it's a little bit of gamesmanship going on there for sure. I always would laugh if I was Texier or who else was it? You're saying that he ended up
Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph. I would laugh if I usually was one of those players near the end of my career, so I would always joke that I think I love the gamesmanship part, but I can assure you, I always joke and say, I don't think the coach on the other side's worried whether or not it's going to be me or Texier or Joseph. Like, that's not how he's designing his lineup, but coaches can't help themselves. They like to play those little bit of mind games and fool and joke around with the lineup. I think that it was probably a little bit more unsure whether Iafallo is going to get bumped down, whether, they're going to have a little bit lineup moves in that regard. But I always laugh when coaches make those little decisions, but it's all part of the mind games heading into it.
Samuel Howe asks, have the Jets been blocking shots? They seem to be giving us too much space on the blue line.
Yeah, the Jets have not been blocking shots. The D, I think, are willing to block shots. The forwards of the Jets have not been blocking shots. And I think that's why those pucks are getting through right now for the Blues. So Blues have done a tremendous job of changing the angles, interchanging up top, getting pucks through, fighting and battling. Part of it's timing, part of it's willingness. And I think that Monty's got them playing the right way, and they know that playoff hockey requires you to get there for those second and third chances and not making it easy on Hellebuyck.
And I know that it sounds easy, right? So you win here at home. Now you need to go win on the road. And Monty said that after the game that's the goal. Now we got to go win one on the road here against the Winnipeg Jets. How do you replicate? And it's easier said than done because obviously you have your home fans here, the crowd behind you, but how do they replicate the energy that they have here at home, what we saw here in game 3 and game 4, and take that now back on the road against the Winnipeg Jets? And on top of that, just carry the momentum into it too.
Yeah, and honestly, I believe there's no momentum as each game is its own entity. And so you're right, though. The way I look at it is this. It is a best 2 out of 3. To win this series, you're going to have to win one of the games in Winnipeg. And the thought process for me would be as a player is saying, hey, why not win game 5 and come home and win it? So they're going to have to win one of either game 7 or they're going to have to win game 5 on the road. So you got to win one of them. Taking it one game at a time is the most important thing. the pressure is now on the Jets, and that would be something that I would talk about. So that would make the first period, the beginning of the game 5, even more critical. If you're able to get to Hellebuyck early on, now you've got the question marks going. How long are they going to wait before they go move to Conway? How long are they going to be thinking, oh my gosh, here we go again, just like last year against the Avalanche? You start to plant that seed of doubt in their mind. So yes, your goal is to obviously win game 5 and come home and end this series, but you do not look past the first period. You do not look past anything but the game 5 and what the job at hand is. And I think that if you as fans, we have this tendency to like, oh, if they win this game and come back, they win it. Players, I can assure you, cannot afford to do that. Their focus is literally on the rest, the recovery that they have to do to prepare for the next game, and the tactical elements that the coaches want to implement, what things that they've seen, they will go over, and they are going to completely stay in the moment and focused on game 5 and look nothing past that first period.
And also, we have to do player of the week. I know that might be hard considering there's been a lot of scoring between game 3 and game 4. But who is your player of the week for the Blues or for the Jets?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think that it's very fair to say that you might want to give it to Buchnevich because he had the hat trick. It's also very fair to say that you might want to give it to Jake Neighbors. But when you do something historic, for as long as this franchise has been around, and you've been a defenseman in this league for how long, and Cam Fowler ends up having an assist today and I believe 5 points in game 3, how do you not pick him? That's something that no defenseman has. We've had so many amazing offensive defensemen, Prongs, Al, like so many good offensive defensemen that have come through, Petrangelo, so no one has ever done it. Like, I got to give it to Cam Fowler.
I know it's so tough because there's been so many guys who have stepped up for the Blues, but man, I just think about that trade and when it happened, and nothing against Cam Fowler. I mean, he's a 15 season veteran, right, in the NHL. I didn't think it was going to be much of anything, honestly. I was like, okay, this is nice. This is a piece that could help them a little bit. I didn't think that he would be this guy where he's gotten back to what you needed out of him. It's almost like he's turned back the clock.
He has. And I think that sometimes when you're in one place for a long time, and I was, you don't realize that you need an injection. You need a different environment to bring that part out of you. And I think that, for him, it's been a nice change to play some meaningful hockey. And I think that he's still got a lot left in him. I think that because he skates so well and sees the game so well and is just a smart defenseman, he defends with his legs. He defends with his stick. He's not going to outmuscle you. He's not going to run you through the boards. He's just a smart defenseman who sees the game a certain way, and it's been a fantastic fit with the Blues.
Sandwich Man says Blues 5-on-5 game is back. I know that was something that we looked at in those first 2 games of the series that they were struggling with.
Yeah, and I think that you can't understate the adjustments that Monty made both in the neutral zone when they wanted the neutral zone forecheck defending wise, forcing the Jets to dump the puck in, which is something they didn't want to do, particularly that top line, the way that they've defended the front of the net and kept things to the outside. And then finally, offensively, I think that their ability to change sides and really negate the swarm defense that the Jets want to implore has really given them fits and given them a lot more defensive zone time for the Jets than they would like. And it's really allowed the Blues to take control of this series.
And you kind of touched on it, but just your overall keys, like a couple of keys as the Blues go back to Winnipeg that you want to see from them this week.
Stay disciplined. I think there's going to be a lot of emotion. I think that the less disciplined team at the end of the game certainly was the Jets. I think you can use that against them. So most importantly for me, stay disciplined. And the next thing is continue to play your frustrating game. And you get that first goal and you never look back. So the pressure is all on the Jets. They're the team that's the President's Trophy champions, and get off to a good start. Focus on that first period. Keep your shifts short and enjoy it. Enjoy the process.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamal. That is Jamal Mayers, and we will talk to you next week with hopefully some more good Blues news.
Sounds great. Great talking to you.
Thank you so much. That is Jamal Mayers. And now we'll be welcoming in Mike Meyer, who is a part of our Sports Hub STL staff. And you can see his wonderful work over on our newsletter and also our website, sportshubstl.com. Mike, how are you doing?
Brooke, I'm doing great here. Plenty of great news here. Plenty of stuff to be happy here about, especially with a Game 4 victory here heading back to Winnipeg.
I know. So you just heard Jamal there and what he was saying. How do you feel after this Game 3 and Game 4 victory at home?
How can you not be just jacked here after this game? I mean, the 7-2 victory, 5-1 here today. I mean, this is a Blues team who has completely re-identified themselves and says, like we're not going down here without a fight. This is a team who here at the end of the season, I said that this team is resilient and this team is just not going to go away. So they're playing here true to their identity. Jim Montgomery here has these guys exactly where they want them to, and they're going to take here each shift by shift and just play here true to their game.
It's just exciting to see, and the atmosphere that's been created at Enterprise Center too. Like I said, I haven't been able to go out there, but just seeing all the videos and when you're watching on TV, you can just feel the energy through the screen there. And I asked this on social media earlier, so I'm just kind of putting you on the spot here, Mike. But I feel like that Game 3 victory, and you could put in Game 4 today, but just Game 3, the way that they responded, it was like they were just like shot out of a cannon energy-wise. That was probably the most exciting home playoff game that I've been able to see since Pat Maroon, which ironic, he was there in the building today, when he had that double overtime game winner against the Dallas Stars.
Yeah, I don't know if you can be able to cite another game. I mean, outside of the complete just Stanley Cup actual series here against Boston that you could have said was even more exciting. I mean, this is a fan base who has been itching and dying here for playoff hockey here back at Enterprise, and they finally get it, and be able to see the victory here that the Blues were able to pull out. This was, I mean, just insert it into my veins here each and every single day, because this is going to be a lot better than coffee here in the morning. So
yeah. All right. Looking at some of the prospects here, obviously the Thunderbirds is a big part of the story of what we're talking here today, and their playoffs are done, which is tough. But at the same time, that means that they can come around and see how things are done here at the NHL level, right? And check out the guys and what they're doing in preparation for the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. There's plenty of good talks, good atmosphere, and unfortunately, I'm the guy who has to deliver the bad news and say, "Hey, there's a loss. I'm sorry." They lost here 5-1 against the Providence Bruins here in a 3-game series. One of their biggest faults here, unfortunately, was just the fact that they're just averaging too many shots against, around 35 to 40 shots here per game. But like you said, with their being eliminated, they now get the benefit of calling up a few black aces, or for fans who are not familiar with the term, these are just extra players who just get to practice with the team here during the postseason. I highly doubt that you're going to see any of these guys actually get in here to game action here at this point in time, unless some true injuries hit. So with there being no salary cap, roster limits here like in the playoffs, as long as the player who was under contract before the trade deadline, they're eligible to be able to play. So just a little bit of background knowledge here for you guys. But so again, even if they don't see game action, calling them up here is completely valuable. I'm looking here at a guy here like Dalibor Dvorsky getting into some postseason practice time, get in there, be able to see what the practice environment here is like, high intensity, learn from the veterans, and just be ready here just in case. So, as much as it's good here as an insurance policy, it's a development tool here that's even more critical.
Yeah, I think Dalibor Dvorsky is definitely a player that we're going to be keeping our eyes on season, maybe at the NHL level. What did you see from Dalibor down the stretch with the Thunderbirds?
I think you saw a guy who was just a little bit more confident here in his play. I mean, as you started to see him get more and more time here with the NHL squad, he was just truly a guy who I think was just a little bit more aware here in his own zone, really refining his defensive tools here just more than anything. But then you started to be able to see, I think, a little bit of quicker reactions, quicker reflexes here in the offensive zone. I think having been able to play around some of the NHL players, he just started really able to see his own zone and be able to kind of start to come into his element here a little bit more and more. I believe this is more games that he's ever really played in an NHL, or I'm sorry, in a single pro season. So I can't necessarily say that I fault him at all coming down the stretch, and his offense kind of dried up here a little bit. But, for a guy who scored 21 goals, 45 points in 61 regular season games, 6th in goal scoring, 9th in points here amongst all rookies, I don't think that you can be able to say that this was, a bad season here at all for a guy here like Dvorsky.
Yeah, we had a question come in from A6583 Rob kind of touching on that, where he said, Mike, do we see Dvorsky here next year to stay? Of course, that's very dependent on how Dvorsky does going into camp, too.
Yeah, absolutely. If I had to pencil him in, he's my third line center. But you've started to see a lot of guys really perform well here down the stretch. That's going to be really, really hard to turn against veteran guys here, like an Oscar Sundqvist, who earlier in the season, there were a lot of fans who were against keeping him. They wanted him gone here at the trade deadline. And he has been an absolute pivotal role here, not just here like in his own zone, but off the ice, here during practice here for some of the younger folks, and even including Dalibor Dvorsky whenever he was up. This was an absolute just mentor here. And so you've only got so many different options. I personally think Dvorsky here is your third line center, but it might be times like where he kind of splits a role here with a different veteran, depending on if his ice time kind of dries up here a little bit.
Ghostface Gaming says Snugs replace Holloway at the perfect time. Of course, it's always hard to replace Holloway, who is performing like a top 6 forward for you. That's really hard to replace. But man, I don't know if you heard us talk about it with Jamal, but I mean, the way that Snuggerud has really just progressed every single game, and then he gets bumped up in special teams to that top power play unit, and he seems to be taking on more and more responsibility every single game. I was worried. Of course, I would have loved to seen him last season so that he could be a little bit more advanced coming up to this point, but he's just advancing every single game, and that's intense to do and hard to do, especially during the playoffs when you're facing the Jets.
For sure. Yeah. And I have to believe here, his postseason play with the Gophers, but then also his international play here with Team USA has more than helped develop him and more than prepare him here for situations here like this. No, you can never once prepare a guy here for the NHL postseason play, regardless of which round here that it is. But this is a true gamer. And like you said, that he's looked more and more ready, more and more competent here each and every single game. And I have to believe that the injury here to Holloway obviously was a horrible, horrible thing. We obviously don't want to see him out. We want to see him back here on the ice. But Jimmy Snuggerud has looked more of the part here at this point. And if and when Holloway does return here during the postseason, what do you do? Because Jimmy Snuggerud has looked really, really good. And so, whose ice time does that start to be able to chip away here at? Because, you're inserting Texier, you're inserting Bolduc here in a certain spot. And so, these guys are looking really, really good. Obviously, again, someone's got to be able to come out, but I'm very, very happy and in a way not surprised to be able to see Jimmy Snuggerud just inserting and succeeding here at the NHL level, especially in the postseason.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. It was great catching up with you for our prospect report, but also just to talk about Blues, because you also write about the Blues for sportshubscl.com. So all the people who are here on the chat, make sure you go check out sportshubscl.com and you can see Mike's great work over there.
Appreciate it, Brooke.
All right. Thank you so much. That is Mike Meyer. And we had a great conversation with Jamal Mayers that you can go back and watch. And thank you all for tuning in today. Please stick around, because if you're also a City SC fan, then the game has wrapped up and we will have Matthew Rocchio. Matthew, I know you're listening to me. I almost called you Rocchio for whatever reason. I'm trying to rename you, but Matthew will be breaking down the City SC game coming up here and Matthew, you can.
What the heck was that?
When you get yourself a real call.
I'm going to blame pregnancy brain for everything now. So Matthew Rocchio, as you just saw right there, he's ready to go for your City SC post game. So make sure you guys stick around here on sportshubscl.com. And also thank you all for tuning in. Just go and check out the City SC show. I promise it's worth it.